Hey, what's up, guys? It's Bakes here, and thank you for joining me again for this episode of my random horror reviews. Today's movie is one that won't need a long winded introduction. It's one that every horror fan should have seen, or if you some reason haven't, make sure you get around to it because it's a classic and a staple of the genre. Today's movie is Night of the Living Dead from the year 1968, directed by the King of Zombies himself, George Romero. Like I said, this one won't need a long winded introduction. I mean, unless you've been living under a rock, you would at least know of this movie. But I picked up this edition of the film a little while ago. I actually already own a couple of versions of this movie, but each copy that I have is a really ugly release, just because there are so many releases of this movie because it's public domain. For those who don't know the backstory behind that, back in the day when this movie came out, the rights and everything got fucked around a little bit, so it became public domain, and because it's public domain, literally anybody can release this movie, and that's why you find so many dogshit editions and releases and everything of this film. But I got my hands on this release by Umbrella, and I've had it here in my collection for a little while now, so I thought, why not give it a rewatch of this classic of the horror genre, like I said. Though, to be transparent, I have been one to say that I'm not the biggest fan of George Romero's Dead franchise, and I know that's probably blasphemy to say as a horror fan. So many people are probably thinking, what the fuck, and are ready to click out of this video, but it's not that I hate them or dislike them. I honestly think they're all pretty good, besides some of the later installments, but I think Night, Dawn, Day, even Land are all pretty solid. I just don't hold them so highly for myself personally. That's pretty much it. So I just wanted to clarify. I actually kind of prefer Romero's other genre movies. Like, I really like Monkey Shines. I really like Martin, which was his vampire movie. There's a couple of other ones that I also really like. I probably prefer at least those two that I listed over his Dead films, or at least a few of them. But getting off topic, let's get into the plot for Night of the Living Dead. A group of survivors hide out in this abandoned house where they try to figure out what's going on in the world and the best means of staying alive, because the dead are now rising from their graves or wherever they died at. A lot of corpses are apparently coming from the morgue, as they learn, and whatever. It doesn't really matter. All you need to know is the dead are rising and these people are trying to figure out how to survive. And that's pretty much it. Let's move into my thoughts of Night of the Living Dead from the year 1968. It wasn't long ago I was doing a review for the movie Rosemary's Baby, and I was speaking about how influential that is to the horror genre. And again, with today's movie, we have another one that is just so influential to horror in general. This was kind of the birth of the zombie movie as we more typically know it today. Because before this, zombies were more commonly voodoo zombies or slaves, or whatever along those lines. This was kind of the start of zombies rising from the dead, or I guess to be more specific, the living dead. And I kind of briefly brought it up before, but the fact that this movie is public domain and the rights got all fucked up and everything, I think kind of makes it even more iconic, because this is the horror movie you always see playing in horror movies. What I mean by that is there's always a scene where characters are sitting around a TV or whatever, and what's playing in the background? Night of the Living Dead. And because of that, there are so many iconic scenes just planted in pop culture, and to this day, this movie still influences other horror movies. Everybody knows iconic parts from this film. Everybody knows they're coming to get you, Barbara, and things like that. And this movie was also just so ahead of its time. Another big thing you'll hear get brought up is having a black man lead the movie. And honestly, I'm not too familiar, so I'm not going to say he was the first to, lead a horror movie. But he's definitely got to be one of the first. He's got to be up there. Like I said, this movie was just so influential and ahead of its time for so many reasons. Now, anybody that talks about Romero's Dead films, they'll always bring up the fact it's not about the zombies, it's about the people. And it's true. The zombies play a very small part in this film, like much smaller than you would kind of expect if you've never seen it. Even a big chunk of this film, you don't see any zombies for a fair while. The movie is about the human side and the characters and their fight for survival and the interactions with each other. But before moving off the zombies, I will say they're just so iconic. Nowadays, we're so used to seeing running, faster zombies, infections rather than corpses rising from the dead. So it's nice watching something that's a bit more classic, you know, the walking, limping style, scared of fire sort of thing. I really like that. But bringing the human and zombie sides together, this movie is much more of a siege film rather than anything else, which is where it's kind of mixed for me because I'm not a huge fan of siege style horror. There are a couple of exceptions, which I'm struggling to think of one now. Dog Soldiers, I like Dog Soldiers, and that's got a whole siege thing going on. But in this case of this movie, at times, I'm not gonna lie, to be honest, I'm a little bit bored by this movie. I just don't find the drama to be that compelling inside the house, and maybe it's because I've seen this movie many times, but the character stuff to me just ain't as interesting as maybe it was the first time around or whatever. So, like I said, when the zombies aren't actually playing a massive factor in this movie, and there's a lot of character interactions and everything, that's where it sort of dies down a little bit for me, because most of the time they're stuck in this house because, like I said, it's pretty much a siege film. So like I said earlier, it's probably blasphemy that I don't love this movie, or in fact love any of the Dead franchise, but like I said, they're all good. They've just never really clicked with me personally. I don't hold them on such a high pedestal as what a lot of other people do. But there's still lots to like about it. You know, it's so iconic and influential, and I really like the zombie style, and, you know, the story ain't bad either. One thing that I will also praise, for a movie that's obviously on the older side of things now, there are plenty of moments where the dead are like really swarming in on people, that I do find pretty intense and pretty creepy. Like when Barbara is first chased while she's in the car, that's pretty intense. When they're going out to the truck, again, that's pretty intense. And then the final swarm, where they're breaking through the windows and everything, that is pretty creepy, pretty intense, and it still holds up. But majority of the character stuff, because again, this is a movie about the humans, not really the zombies, I don't find as compelling as maybe it once was back in the past, you know, upon earlier watches for myself. But I know I could really get some hate for this score that I'm going to give it, but it's me personally. You know, if you have a different opinion, let me know in the comments, but this is my fucking score. I'm not going to bend it to please people. I'm going to give Night of the Living Dead, like I said, a classic and whatever, a 7 out of 10, which is still a good score. Like, I wouldn't hesitate watching this, you know, yearly or whatever. I think this movie is still pretty good. I gave it a slight edge because, like I said, influence and whatever plays into it. It's just never been really one to grab me, but like I said, if you have different opinions on it, I don't know, there's probably people out there that don't like it. Let me know in the comments below. I'm sure a lot of people go in the other direction where they're like, no, you need to at least give it a 9 or something like that. Let me know your thoughts of the movie in the comments below, guys, but I appreciate you joining me for another one of my random horror reviews, and I'll see you for another episode soon, guys. Peace.